You're listening to SB Nation Radio, taking you through Memorial Day. Here's your host, Ken Weinman.
The NBA Finals start on Thursday. Cleveland at Golden State for the third consecutive time. Let's talk some NBA basketball with Chris Pirtle from NBAinsiders.com. Chris, thanks for joining us here on SB Nation Radio. Chris, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. All right. So let's start. Obviously, this was the series we expected. I don't think did we expect the playoffs to be this bad before we got here?
No, I don't think we did, Ken. I mean, I think we kind of knew this was going to be a Warriors-Cavs finals again, but I don't think we expected the level of non-competitive games that we saw going into this. I can't remember really a more boring first three rounds of the playoffs in my lifetime. So, no, to answer your question, I don't think we did.
Yeah, did we see anything compelling before we get to the finals on Thursday? Did anything sort of even get you excited? Maybe that Wizards-Celtics series, but even that.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that, Ken, because yesterday I was thinking the same thing. We only saw one buzzer beater this whole playoff so far, and that was when Joe Johnson and the Utah Jazz beat the Clippers, and I think that was either game 1 or 2. And then we saw a near buzzer beater when Paul George missed an opportunity to have a buzzer beater in that first round against Cleveland. But other than that, there's really been no late game heroics, nothing really to entertain us. So I'm glad we're to the finals, and hopefully we'll get some good action here in the finals.
So we're talking to Chris Pirtle, NBAinsiders.com. Finals start Thursday, Cavs and Warriors. I think the Cavs are better than they were last year, but unfortunately I think so are the Warriors.
I totally agree with you, Ken. Every time I watch both of these teams, I think the exact same thing. You know, the Warriors obviously upgraded by getting the second, third, or fourth best player in the league in Kevin Durant to join their team and take a spot that Harrison Barnes occupied last year. So in that respect, they definitely upgraded. But I think one of the things that I think the Warriors are not getting credit for is the way that they've upgraded their center position. I would much rather have a three-headed monster of David West, JaVale McGee, and Zaza Pachulia instead of an Andrew Bogut, who was probably just going to get injured anyway. So I think they upgraded at two positions they really needed to upgrade. Actually, the only two positions they were weak at, and that's why I like the Warriors to win this. But Cleveland is much better. You look at a guy like Kyle Korver. He was an all-star just 2 years ago. They added him. They added Darren Williams, who still has something left in the tank. I think one of the things that's scary about Cleveland, Ken, is Kyrie Irving is getting better. Mm-hmm. And that's got to be a scary thought to opposing teams.
And I also think that Kevin Love is playing better than he ever has played for the Cavs.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I was thinking about that earlier. Kevin Love, it seems like, is starting to find his comfort zone. And that's another thing that's got to be scary to their opponents, because last year, if they would have had an effective Kevin Love, and I think at 4 out of those 7 games, he scored in single digits. That can't happen. The Warriors are much better this year, so they're going to need production from Kevin Love if they want to repeat.
Talking to Chris Pirtle, NBAinsiders.com. I've got the Warriors in 6. How do you see it and why?
Well, I've got the Warriors in 5, Ken, and I'll tell you why. I think they're the fastest team that's ever played the game of basketball. They have a power forward in Draymond Green, we've never seen a power forward that can pass like great Draymond Green. He was 7th in the league in assists last year. So if you think about that, a power forward being 7th in the league in assists, that's not supposed to happen. We've never seen anybody that can shoot the ball like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And Kevin Durant obviously is one of the best scorers in the game. So like I said, they upgraded their depth at the center position, and I think that's going to be key for them to win. And I see them running the Cavs off the court based upon their speed. I think this series is only going to go 5, 6 at the most.
Chris, LeBron James passed Michael Jordan for career playoff scoring last week, and it was funny the way that was approached there. The LeBron haters said, well, it took him 33 more games, but they failed to mention that it took him 120 less shots. I think he's the second best player I've ever seen and a top 5 player of all time. I'm just curious how you see LeBron.
Well, he's definitely in the mix, and the debate can officially begin if the Cavs can pull this off and win the NBA championship. One thing about Michael Jordan is obviously he won those 6 titles with the same team. He didn't have to go to Miami and join a super team with a couple other big-time All-Stars, and then he didn't have to go back home after that team from back home got really bad after he left and was able to acquire 3 number 1 picks and turn those guys into Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. So we also need to remember some of the circumstances that are involved with LeBron James' run to the finals. They've been great. It's interesting because of the 8 times that LeBron James now has made the finals, 6 of those times it was on the number 2 seed. So I find that interesting in terms of what goes on in the regular season. But James is definitely going to be in the debate with Jordan if they can pull off and win this finals.
A couple final things with Chris Pirtle, NBAinsiders.com. Curious to get your thoughts on Chris Paul and where he could end up. A lot of scuttlebutt that there's mutual interest between him and the Spurs.
Yeah, and that's very possible from what I'm able to gather. The reality of the situation is this, though. Whether Chris Paul joins the Spurs or not, the Spurs are at least 2 really good players, possibly 3 good players, from being able to compete on the same level of the Golden State Warriors. You could actually have Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, which probably won't happen for financial reasons, but those 2 guys could join the San Antonio Spurs, and it still wouldn't be good enough to beat the Golden State Warriors. So I hear a little bit of that chatter, and the Spurs obviously need to do what they've got to do to upgrade their team. They can't continue to get swept by the Warriors, but like I said, if they want to compete, it's just like any team in the East that wants to compete with Cleveland. They're going to have to add 2 really top 5, top 10 players just to even think that they're in the same league with Cleveland and in West and Golden State. So I see that possible, but I don't think it's going to be good enough for the Spurs.
You mentioned competing with Cleveland. The Celtics, I thought they should have made the move for Butler or George if that was possible for that pick, and they didn't, and Danny Ainge might have been smart not to do so. But what can they do? Getting Markelle Fultz and Gordon Hayward, is that enough? What can they do to compete with Cleveland?
No, I think Gordon Hayward is going to be is probably going to be pretty easy to acquire. It sounds like there's mutual interest. He was obviously a player with Brad Stevens back in college, so I see that happening. He's an unrestricted free agent. What I think Boston probably wants to do, whether it happens or not, will be a different story, is to turn Markelle Fultz into a player like Jimmy Butler or Paul George, whoever they can make a deal with, whether it's Indiana or Chicago. But again, Ken, if you put Paul George and Gordon Hayward on that team and pair them with Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford, they're a pretty nice team, no doubt about it. And they may win 1 or 2 games in the Eastern Conference Finals, but the reality of the situation is they're still not on the same level with the Cleveland Cavs. In 12 months, we may be talking about a Cavs-Warriors 4 finals because I don't see anything stopping these 2 teams.
Last thing in 30 seconds, what if you were running a team, are you worried at all about Lonzo Ball?
No, not at all. Right now, the rookie classes have been just terrible. This year's rookie class, the worst one I could ever remember. If I have a good opinion on a guy like Lonzo Ball, which I actually do, I'm going to draft him. So no worries at all.
He's Chris Pirtle. He covers the NBA for NBAinsiders.com. Chris, is always great stuff, man. Thanks for joining us here on this Memorial Day.
You got it, Ken. Good talking to you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I obviously, it sounds like LeVar Ball, Lonzo's dad, is pushing Lonzo to the Lakers. It doesn't sound. Danny Ainge came out on a local radio show in Boston and said that Lonzo Ball won't work out for the Celtics anyway. Though, interestingly enough, he says it'll work out for the Sixers, who have the 3rd pick. But I'll tell you what, the LeVar Ball thing, which was cute during the season, has gotten old fast for me, and the stupid shoes and the stupid shirts and what he did to was it Christine Leahy on Fox and stay in your lane T-shirts and just the stupidity that comes out of his mouth every time he talks. And quite frankly, and I think Lonzo Ball's a good player, really good player, but despite him saying that they lost to Kentucky because they had too many white guys on UCLA, they lost to Kentucky because De'Aaron Fox worked his son. De'Aaron Fox was a monster in that game. And for me, at least, I don't want the LeVar Ball headache. And by the way, if you're Steve Alford and you've got the 2 other kids coming there and you saw the youngest lose by 55 in an AAU game this week, I don't know that those kids are going to be as good as Lonzo. Lonzo's a really good player, and Lonzo's going to be a lottery pick, and he's most likely going to go to the Lakers at 2. But is Lonzo Ball and then the eventual acquisition of Paul George, does that make the Lakers contenders? Like automatically? I don't think so, because they've had lottery picks, and Julius Randle's been okay, and D'Angelo Russell's been okay, and we don't know what they have in Brandon Ingram. Magic says he's the only guy that's unavailable, so they could trade everybody else. But I think that Lakers roster has to be blown up. And I don't know that Lonzo Ball and Paul George make them contenders. Hope you're enjoying your Memorial Day with us. Ken Wyman taking you through on SB Nation Radio.